Welcome to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee, where amazing things happen. Our goal is to help build, repair, and restore healthy relationships.
Our primary focus is on the marriage relationship. However, the topics are applicable to the relationships that we value most. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow. And we have definitely grown. We have reached episode 80 on the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil and Renee.
Who would have thought when we got started doing this that we would actually get to 80? I know it's been a little over a year and a half now, and we still haven't stopped.
Yeah, and we're enjoying every single moment of it.
As God gives us the episodes, we still gonna keep bringing them.
Yes, because that's the thing about life and relationship. You have endless content.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when you decide to open your life up. So we're going to talk this week about something that I think can cause a lot of problems, and it's because there's so many of them.
Okay, that's almost like a riddle.
Ha ha ha! You know, I love riddles. This week's episode is called God Values. Values are something that we all have, and it's something that it can be very broad. There's over, when I looked it up, there's over anywhere from 50 to 100 different values. And so I think that can be a part of the problem, because there are so many values. You making your own decision as an individual about what your values are is a very important part of you developing and cultivating a good relationship with yourself and with other people. So we're going to really dive into that and just really talk about what values are and why we need them.
Because, you know, values are so essential to building a healthy relationship, especially at the very beginning, because that's when you're laying the foundation and that's when you're really getting to know each other. And this is a topic that you should be discussing with each other, even though you may not make a conscious effort to say, oh, we're going to talk about my core values or your core values, but they're going to come up. So the more you talk about them, the more you're going to be on the same page as you grow in your relationship. And
you know what's important is the beginning, because I know people automatically assume that because it's the reason why it's not called rich marriage, it's called rich relationships, because before everyone is ever married, you are an individual. And so it's important that you as an individual take the time, if you're dating or if you're single or if you're married, that you need to take the time to spend the time with yourself so that you can kind of have an idea of what your values are. And there's a scripture and it's basically, it just talks about understanding the importance of the truth setting you free. It's in John 8:32. It says, you will know the truth and it'll set you free. Well, you need to know the truth about yourself. And a part of that truth is really deciding, well, what are my values? I think about the first time I really understood what values were and why they were important. And the way I would have to describe it is that internal, I can't and I got tos. And so I think for me, I understood early there were certain things that because of the things that I saw, that there were certain things that I made decisions that I was not going to do. One of my biggest values was to be honest.
Right.
Because I saw how when people weren't honest with you, it could hurt you. I saw the effects of that. And so I think sometimes our values are established in most cases because of what we've seen and what's been modeled and what we've experienced. And so it's just important that you as an individual, you know what your values are.
And that's something that I was going to actually bring up, because when everybody lives life, and as you live life, things happen. And as those things happen to you, those are where you're going to actually establish those values that you bring up, that you just mentioned, my go-to. Some people call them their deal breakers, or especially when you're in partnership with someone, whether it's through a marital relationship or even just a friendship, or even just being in relationship with anyone, you have those things that happen that are going to sometimes test your values and challenge your values, or even make you think, what are my values?
And I think it's really important to understand the difference between your expectations of the person that you're dating and your own values. Mm-hmm. Because values are really designed for you to decide what you will and won't do. And then when you get into relationships with people, you can't project your values onto them. You just have to make sure that the people that you go into close relationship with share those values. When you're young, you're not making decisions based on values. You're making decisions based on likes and Sometimes it's just because you're at the same place at the same time. You're both in high school. They're your family, they're your neighbor. And so as time goes on and as you grow, you begin to realize, well, these are things that are really important to me. Things that when they're broken or when they're not valued or when they're not taken seriously, it can become a problem for you as an individual.
And you said something that was really important, whether you're in a romantic relationship or just a friendship relationship. You used a word there that kind of piqued my interest, which is compatibility.
Yeah.
Because the compatibility that you have with those people or those situations that come with the people that you're in relationship with, compatibility is the core, and that will build that camaraderie that you have with them, with each other.
Well, let's name some of the values because there are so many of them, but I want to just talk about the 10 core values of relationships, because I think it's important to kind of understand that when you ask someone, what are your values? Of course, we know the Air Force's values have been ingrained in our hearts and in our lives because of so many years of being in the Air Force. Would you like to share what those Air Force core values are?
I can. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in everything that you do.
So if you don't,
and those are not bad.
No, those are great. And if you don't have your own set of values, find someone whose values are working for them and try to emulate them. Because as you grow and as you change, your values they'll expand. You'll have more than just 10 or 3. And the thing to me that's important about your values is that your values are things that you live, because I can go through this whole list: determination, faithfulness, friendship, growth, happiness, honesty, humor, influence, inner harmony, justice, kindness, knowledge, leadership.
The list it
can be endless, but it's important for you as a person to think about the things that you live. To me, I believe that just like it says in John 8:32, you will know the truth and it'll set you free. I'm a big believer that your real true values are the values that you live. Because just because you may have adopted those values or you may have been exposed to those values, the values that really impact your life are the ones that when people watch your life, they see that threaded through consistently throughout your life.
And I'm going to share why you came up with 10. And as we were talking about, as we were getting ready for the show, I was thinking, what are my core values? Yeah. And that's one of the things that we share in the workbook, the Rich Relationship Oneness workbook. It's not a workbook just to go through and finish and just to say, I started page 1 and end at the end.
No.
And I answer all these questions and then I am a little bit better. It's really designed for you to do an inward journey to really challenge you and really for you to establish the things that you believe. And that's what we're bringing these episodes to you from. Not directly from the book, but the essence and the principles that are led in the book. And as we talked about it, and you mentioned one of the core principles, while the Air Force, I just rattled off those ones from the Air Force. Those were ones from an organizational perspective.
Right.
But you have to have those from an individual perspective. Long before you get to any organization, you should have some set foundational things that you just hold dear and dear to your heart, because that is really what's going to guide you throughout your life, whether it's in relationships, in business, or anything else for that matter.
And I think that as because of the way God created us, because God is a triune God, we're going to be the same way. We're not just a spirit. We're not just a body. We're not just a mind. We're all those things. And so I think that they're going to be professional values. They're going to be personal values. They're going to be relationship values. And so I think a part of it is just, and they could all be the same for all of those things.
And they're interchangeable.
Yes.
Sometimes they overlap, and it should be, I think the values that you have should just add on to what you inherit from an organization or anything else. It just should be added to your list. Like you said, the 10 that you have, the list can be endless, but we have a set of core values. And that's kind of what we're kind of really, really talking about from an individual perspective.
And I think it's important, because, we actually want to give a shout out to New Life in Christ. We spent some time with them. They had a couples event.
We actually got to be eavesdroppers. Yeah, and it was fun.
We actually got to be served. And we got to be participants. And it's just amazing how when you listen to couples talk, and I think it's something that couples take for granted. People who are married.
Especially if they've been married for a while.
We take for granted that we have a lot more in common. And because we don't talk about it in an open setting, some of the things that we value, some of the things that are our core values are things that other couples share and other individuals who are successful share. And so I think it's just important that you get around other people and you share with them. You know, you share your life with them. You share your story with them, and then you'll get to, it keeps you from feeling isolated and alone.
Right.
And so that was just a really a fun thing that we did. And you just begin to see how much we are alike.
So I'll start off. I know you had 10, and I know if we're going to revisit them, and
yes,
we're going to circle back. But I'll start off with I won't say it's number one, but it's one of my 5 values, and it's trust. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's trust, this is where you have to have trust in your relationship with yourself first, but also trusting in others, especially your spouse or the person you're dating or the person you're in relationship, even if it's not a romantic relationship, but anybody that you're in a relationship with for that matter. Trust has to be in essence of the value that you hold near and dear, because that is, I think, one of the foundational bricks in any relationship. You have to be able to trust each other, because that's where the benefits from the relationship are going to grow from.
And I love that. But you know, what I hear is, you know, because I told you about we talked about it a long time when people ask me, oh, you have a great husband. How did you get him? And the Lord told me to have them to write a list down and become the list. Well, I think that in order to have a value of trust, you then have to be trustworthy.
Right.
And so I think that it's unrealistic to have an expectation or a value that you don't model.
Because I'm actually cheat a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Because even inside of trust, I have that broken down a little bit more, because like you said, it's just so many things that you can add to it that, or you can hold near and dear to your heart as far as things that you believe as far as your core. Respect. That still falls under trust for me. Under the umbrella of trust is respect, loyalty, and honesty. And I want to focus a little bit on honesty, because this was something that reminded me of when we were dating at the very, very beginning of our relationship, where we made a choice to always be honest with each other. You know, it's funny that I think we were watching a show, and it was a show that was talking about,
60% of couples don't tell each other the truth.
60%. That tells you something, that in any relationship, and I think I even used that before I even heard it in his episode that we were watching on television. I was like, you know what? We knew that already, because when you think about it, it's sad, but true. 60% of relationships, people are not being honest with each other.
And that would explain why relationships don't last. Because in order for everything that's built is built on something.
Right.
And if your foundation is not strong, then guess what? It's not going to stand, no matter how good it makes you feel. And I think one of the reasons why I think things like these episodes are so important, not just for couples, but for individuals, because if you're struggling to figure out what you're looking for in a relationship, you need to first discover what's inside of you.
And what's important for you, what to look for.
Yes.
And these are the things that you can actually look for. Not that using our list is the all end all to be all, but yeah, you should have your own, but we're probably going to have a lot of things in common on the same list. But even with that honesty that we were talking about, I was kind of leading to the episode not the episode, but our situation when I was talking about when we were first started dating, where keeping your word was so important to each other at the very beginning of our relationship, that as much as I could be honest in my youth, that I could be, I wanted to be very, very important in our relationship, because I know the kind of damage that it can do in your relationship. And really, you didn't let me get away with overlooking the minor things.
Well, because the Bible said, and I didn't know this at the time, but the small foxes destroy the vine.
Right.
Those little things end up being bigger things, because the little things are really masking what's really going on in your heart.
And that's something that you as the individual have to vow to yourself, but also to the person you're in relationship with, is I'm going to be honest with you. You know, even if it hurts, even if it's painful, it's something that you have to do, because like you just described, it's going to erode and deteriorate your relationship to a level that sometimes is not recoverable.
You know, I think about something, you know, and we all we understand, they tell you, you should never go to the grocery store if you're hungry. Why?
Right.
Because you're going to pick up everything. And we've done it before. You're like,
you're going to pick up stuff that you don't even think
you
about.
Hungry. You must be hungry because you just want. And you should never start a relationship when you're hungry emotionally. You need to be filled with your own set of values, your own set of identity, so that when you're going into a relationship, you're not going to the relationship to take something or to get something. You're going to the relationship to give something. So you're more likely to find someone you're more compatible with and that you're at the same level of integrity and values versus you're going out hungry, right, or as the young kids say, thirsty. Mm-hmm. We've created a generation of individuals who shop hungry.
Right.
And you can't make decisions when you're not well nourished.
Right. So do you want to share something off of your list? Or because you just rattled them off at the beginning.
Okay, so that was the 50. That was the 50. You know, there's like over 50. There's hundreds of different values.
Right.
But the 10 that really matter in relationships are trust.
Okay. So I got that one right.
You got that one right.
Okay.
And then the other one is loyalty.
Yep. I said that too.
Yes, you did.
I'm not trying to quote.
That's okay. And you didn't see my list and I didn't see yours. Advising, making sure that you're basically sharing what you know. Cause I think sometimes we know things, but we don't feel that we have a responsibility to anyone else. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things you're really big on. Your marriage or relationship, your success is not your own. You should be sharing it.
And I'll share one with you right now while you're looking down at your list. And for a quick break is self-discipline. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds weird, but like, wait a minute, that's a behavior. That's not necessarily a value. And I would disagree because you have to know what you're actually all about when it comes to things that you're going to accomplish, things that you want to do. You know, a strong work ethic is something that some people say you can inherit it, but I think it's something that you actually develop over time. And that really is the essence of self-discipline. I think if the Bible quotes it as one of the virtues that you should be led by your Holy Spirit, fruits of the Spirit that you should be living your life by, that is something that I wanted or I tried to inherit early, even before I became a believer. And I was like, oh man, self-discipline? Yeah. That's something that the Bible even talks about?
Yeah, the Bible's pretty on point about everything. And so the third one is a belief system.
Okay.
You know, it says religion, but I just don't like that word.
Right. And when you think about that from a value perspective, why is that so, in essence, or should be on a list?
Because I think that the core, again, we're talking about what are you building on. So everyone has a belief system. Whether it's Christianity or
something else
or whatever it is, everyone has. And so your belief system really has a lot to do with how well you adhere to your values.
Right.
Because I think that when you have a higher authority,
it's kind of like you're governing.
Exactly. So to me, I think of your values are just the things you say mean something to you. And your beliefs are what give you the power to do it. And then your actions and your habits are your way of proving
or the
to
manifestation
people,
of those things that you
so it's like, and so we don't think that, you know, well, why do I need to know what my values are? Because if you don't know what they are, you don't know what they aren't. And if you don't know what they aren't, then you find yourself, because the Bible talks about being tossed with every wind of doctrine. You gotta, and you know, people say it, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Right.
So these are just some important things that we need to sit down with ourselves and really come to terms with very, very early.
And I will give you one now because you're actually doing one of my values right now. You're in a course that you're taking just to get better at something.
Thank you.
This one is self-improvement. Mm-hmm. You know, again, it goes back to what I said about the last one about self-discipline. We're like, that's a behavior. Well, no, self-improvement is a value-based system that you can look at because you should be wanting to get better.
And we always say, let's grow. That's not a cliche. It's for real.
Right. You should be wanting to get better for yourself because the better you are for yourself, the better you can be for others.
Yes.
And with that, you know, you always have to be driving to get better. Because not only will you bless and be able to be an aid or a benefit to someone else in their life, it's going to drive you to achieve things that you never even thought you could do.
Family. And the reason why family is important, it's one of those things, you know, the Bible says, leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife. When you talk about family, it's understanding that you have a group of people that you depend on and they depend on you, and you trust them and they trust you. And some of us, because of things that have happened to us in our childhood, we don't always see value of family as a value. But when family is a value, it helps you to see things differently. And I think the bigger your family, the healthier your family, the easier it is to learn how to put other people, their needs and their goals before yours. And so I think that that's a really important part of growing.
And let's elaborate on that one a little bit, because we understand, and I'm sure everyone out there listening, or not everyone, but the vast majority of you can identify with this. We all have challenges in our family life.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's our immediate family, your nucleus in your household, or even we call it your expanded family, maybe your siblings, your cousins, your aunts, your uncle, everything that is outside of your nucleus family. Sometimes it can be challenging because we all have those people who are challenging in our family, and it may, guess what?
And
I may be one of them.
We may be the challenging person.
I may be the one that is the challenging part that is going to test that value. It's going to test that, because family has to be important to you, but also it's the essence of you as an individual, because I think a lot of times that's where you have established your foundation for the values that you hold at the very beginning that are going to change over time as you learn things and you inherit things. You can inherit some values from your
Air Force family, from your church family,
absolutely, from people
from your sorority or fraternity family,
for people you're in a relationship that is going to sometimes challenge what you have learned in your family and change what you have already been doing, maybe for years.
Yeah, and it's important that you understand that when family is a value, because, we, most people have seen movies about the mafia and different, cultures, how family is like really the end all to be all. Yeah, it's like no matter what. And I think that's so beautiful to see that, because when that has been what you've experienced your whole life, as I know for us growing up, when my grandmother, my great grandmother were alive, we were all so close. I mean, we did everything together. We played games together. And so when you grow up with that experience, you think that that's the way everyone's family is. And that's not the case. So we're not talking about you trying to project your childhood of origin experience onto other people. It just means that values and family is important to you. And that's going to look different for every single person. Another value is communication. I was
going to see you stole that. You looking at my list.
No, I'm not. And a part of communication is not just listening. It's not just talking. It's also listening, and it's listening to understand.
That has to be a core of your value system. Goodness, yes. And because without it, you are going to be hurting.
Yeah. Because a part of it just makes it really difficult for you to grow in relationships when you don't know people and they can't get to know you.
And I would even say we sat in on the
New Life in
Christ had. One of the topics came up, and communication always comes up.
It always comes
up. In whether it's in marriage retreats or even just in teaching.
In life and work. I mean, no matter what you do. I mean.
Right. Because when it comes to those communication things, it's good to have them, but you have to know what is it about communication? Because sometimes that can be so broad. And I'm so glad you mentioned active listening and assertive communication as the how you actually exercise that or participate in that, because, and this is something that you can do even as an individual, you are going to have a natural strength when it comes to communication. Either you're going to be a talker or you're going to be a listener.
Right.
In the simplest terms, work on the other one.
Exactly. And, like you broke down, trust, you talked about loyalty. Well, when I think of communication, I think of body language.
Oh, yeah.
I think of tone.
Yep.
I think of giving the other person time to taking in consideration that the other person may not be like you. Like I'm a quick responder and you're a processor. So there's so many facets to communication that you have to be willing to really learn. But to say, I love communication, but all you do is talk, then that's not communication.
And one of the things I would like to just change and shift a little bit as we've been, this time flies by so fast. But
it flies when you're having fun.
It is. But shift a little bit. Some of the things that you have to be paying attention to, all the things, if you don't see these character values, we talked about character last episode, but if you don't see the character traits and now you see the values, if they are not lining up, make sure you take those as yellow lights. Not saying that you got to sever the relationship with someone, but take
pump
those
your brakes.
Slow down and really observe and ask yourself, why am I accepting this behavior or this manifestation of communicate or lack thereof, those values and character things, as a way to be in a close relationship with these people?
Well, I can answer that because in our society, in our generation, and in many cultures, if you notice, none of these things are physical. They're all things that are matters of the heart and matters of you have to watch the person. You have to spend time with them. And so I think that when you make it physical, all these things become irrelevant because now your feelings are involved.
Right.
And so it's just important that before you take the next step, before you make your next decision about any type of relationship, that you stop and take the time to check yourself, do an inventory of,
yes.
Hey, you know what? Let me make sure that I'm being honest with myself.
Because it's hard to ignore those things too.
Well, it becomes easy because we talked about it. We're our best salesmen. Mm-hmm. And so once we get our emotions and our appetites in line, or they become a part of the equation, all the other little small, still, quiet voice is very hard to hear it.
Because you know what? You don't even have to go looking for those things.
No.
They're going to show up.
They will. And that's why if family is a value, then families may tell you something, or someone that cares about you may see something. And that's why you have to make sure that if you say, well, family is a value, that means that I'm willing to listen. That means I'm willing to spend time. And, so when we say that something is our value, we have to make sure that our actions reflect what we say is our value.
You have to put value on it.
Yes, it has to be yours. Number 6 is lifestyle.
Okay.
And lifestyle is basically what you talked about: how you eat, how you
live,
how you sleep, how you work, how you play. And so if that's a value for you, you have to make sure that the people that you're in relationship with share that same value, or at least respect it.
Because
we have to,
because we're all different. We're all different.
Yes.
And just like you're a night person. You can stay up late doing things. I'm a more of a morning person.
And that's okay.
That's just making it simplified. It would be like me telling you, get up early in the morning and do like I do. Right. Or you making me try to stay up late. I just can't do it.
And I think a part of it is understanding that being one doesn't mean being the same.
Right.
I keep saying that. So hopefully we get it, that being one doesn't mean we're the same. And even when we may have the same values, it doesn't mean that it's going to look the same for each person, because two people, we're both physically, like for me, my idea of a healthy lifestyle is managing your priorities, making sure that what you say is first, making sure that you are taking in the right type of nutrients, making sure you watch me about sleeping, just because I don't realize that that's important, it doesn't mean that it is. So we have to make sure that the people around us have the freedom to kind of help us and remind us of what that looks like.
Right.
Number 7 is honesty. 8 is goals.
And number 9
is self-discipline.
Man, this sounds so familiar, y'all.
That's so funny to me that you didn't even know what my lists were. Self-improvement.
We promise you guys, we did not.
We don't do this together. We do it separately. But he didn't even know what mine are, and I don't know what his are.
So we actually gave you some really good things.
And the 10th one is finance.
We're going to talk about money.
Yes.
Money as a value. Money has value, but it is a value thing and personal.
And in this understanding that for some people, the value is to save it. And for some people, the value is to spend it. And so you have to make sure that when you talk about, oh, wow, we have the same values, but do we have the same perspective? And do we have the same goal with that value? Right. Because someone's value may be family, which means I keep everybody out. And somebody else's value with family might be I keep everybody in. And so it's just important that's why communication is at the essence of everything that is going to grow and live. You have to know how to communicate.
And it's so important as we wrap up this episode, which is actually, we could keep going, y'all, because it's actually a lot of fun to talk about these things and these topics And
a part of it is because we want to make sure that
we are bringing value.
Yes, we're bringing value, not values, but value, because these are so many of the things that you just don't think about it when you're in it. Sometimes you need a heart check. Sometimes you need a reality check. Sometimes you need a little mouth to mouth. Sometimes you might need someone to really say, hey, have you gotten off course? You know, is this the life you wanted to have? And so many times we're struggling in our relationship. We're struggling with ourselves and we don't realize that it all goes back to, are you being honest with yourself? What are your values? Are you living according to them or are you compromising?
Because you got to remember your values can change over time. As you grow, you're going to add things. You're going to take away things. You're going to modify things. But they are so important to the building of your relationship because things that I remember and tried to do when I was in my 20s and when I'm in my 50s is a little bit different now.
So you change.
You do change. And sometimes your value change and it's going to be for the better. So we hope we gave you guys some good stuff to actually think about when it comes to your values. Just remember, we are stronger together.
Let's grow.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Bill and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.